by police officers of all races. Of those 500 plus people, only 115 were black, 20%. Now what's interesting is that same group of people, black males, 15 to 35 years of age, 3% of the population, is responsible for 55% of all murder in this country. No. Media doesn't tell you that. I don't know why. It's true. What the media does not tell you is that a police officer is assaulted every 2 minutes, and a police officer is shot, gunned down every 54 hours, just a little bit more than 2 days. 60% of all police officers who are shot by black males. 3% of the American population. Blacks commit 60% of the shootings, yet are only shot by police 20% of the time. What's going on here? It seems that there is a bias in the police department, and that bias, considering only 30% of felons who have shot law enforcement officers are Caucasian, that means that the 80% of individuals who have been shot by police officers have experienced bias. They have experienced civil rights discrimination. Barry doesn't tell you that because Barry is living a lie. Everything Barry believes is a lie. Everything that vomits out of Barry's mouth is a lie. The real crime stats in this country are absolutely pathetic.
The pain we feel may not soon pass, but my faith tells me that they did not die in vain. I believe our sorrow can make us a better country. I believe our righteous anger can be transformed into more justice and more peace.
Obama talks about his faith, assuring him that someone died for the right reason. Who died for the right reason? The terrorists in Dallas? And yes, we know there was more than one. We saw all of the eyewitness videos. We saw police shooting at individuals on ground level. And we saw police shooting at individuals in elevated positions in the buildings surrounding them. They were shot like fish in a barrel. And once again, the media and the state has colluded to hide that truth from all of you. Just like the other lies that they've presented you for many years now. Fire doesn't melt steel. Right. A retard like Rosie O'Donnell will stand there and tell you that fire doesn't melt steel. And you have 40% of the people in the country believe it. Well, maybe it's 39% as some of them are waking up. His faith, the faith that's been in question, the faith that so much of America is very certain is no faith that any of them have any alignment with. Any faith that assures him that pain is good for a nation, and that the death of police officers is good for a nation. There's no faith that any man need bend a knee to. And again, this fool talks about justice, creating more peace. What justice was served in Dallas? There was no justice served in Dallas unless you were a Black Lives Matter terrorist. There was no justice served in Dallas unless you're a Louis Farrakhan Nation of Islam separatist. There was no justice in Dallas unless you're a Black Panther Party Let's Kill Whitey terrorist. Yet, you just heard Barack Obama talking about more justice and more peace. That's really funny because those of us who grew up in New York remember that's Al Sharpton saying. You know, Al Sharpton, the terrorist who gets away with calling for the death of white people before businesses are burned down and people are killed, and Al Sharpton is never charged with incitement of riot. Well, we know that Al Sharpton is just another FBI informant and another federal actor playing a role, stirring up hatred, stirring up death. We know what goes on. Yet here you hear Mr. 47% repeating Al Sharpton's hate mantra. There was no justice in Dallas, except for the moment that the drone blew up the piece of shit, black Muslim, black lies terrorist with his own explosive device.
Every officer has accepted a calling that sets them apart. Most of us imagine if the moment called for that we would risk our lives to protect a spouse or a child. Those wearing the uniform assume that risk for the safety of strangers. They and their families share the unspoken knowledge that each new day can bring new dangers. But none of us were prepared or could be prepared for an ambush by hatred and malice. The shock of this evil still has not faded. At our best, we honor the image of God we see in one another. We recognize that we are brothers and sisters, sharing the same brief moment on earth and owing each other the loyalty of our shared humanity. Your loss is unfair. We cannot explain it. We can stand beside you and share your grief. And we can pray that God will comfort you with a hope deeper than sorrow and stronger than death. May God bless you.
The pain we feel may not soon pass, but my faith tells me that they did not die in vain.
Two very different men, two very different hearts, beating in two very different directions. One was mocked, and one was treated like dirt for years because of his family name, because of his own personal history. And the other has been celebrated. His moronic statements, his stupidity, his ignorance covered up by a media who wants to present a lie to a nation, to a future that will look back at this media and mock it as being something right out of Joseph Goebbels' wet dreams. Hatred, utter hatred, is what is in this man's heart for you and this nation and those who defend us. There is no justice in Dallas, except that America understands once and for all what's going on. Those in the highest positions of power are using race against you, like good cultural Marxists. Ethno-Marxism is their favorite tool. Hide behind equal rights and fairness, non-existent crimes. Put guilt as a psychological weapon to hammer and batter a population that you wish to affect. Through their guilt, they accept lesser individuals, individuals who lack the qualifications, individuals who lack the maturity and the morality to lead anybody into positions of power. And once in positions of power, those pathetic, immoral, dastardly individuals like little Barry Obama unleash their hatred, their rage on the world that has done nothing but hold them up and give them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to prove reality wrong. It's never happened yet, and it's a shame. 47% push around the rest of America. The rest of America has been so browbeaten for half a century. They don't know how to stand up for themselves and say, enough is enough. When a man gets up there and rubs salt in America's wounds, lecturing them about his own hatreds, about the ideologies that were spewed in his so-called church, the hatreds that were instilled in him by his many father substitutes, who all embraced a sick ideology of failure. There's no way to hide this. There's no way to excuse this. There is no war on blacks. There is a war on white America. There is a war on American values. There is a war on America's mental health. There is a war on America's spirit. You just heard it, raging from the smiling and sneering mask of the imposter, Barack Hussein, whatever his name, Obama. A fraud. Generations ago, men built machines to serve man. Who then serves those machines? Now it is man who jumps to respond to every buzzer and bell issued by the same machine that tells you day is night, cats are dogs, and fish need bicycles. Break away from the lies that bind us to the bad machine. Download a dose of radical reality with Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine every Friday at 4 on the PPRN Radio Network. Don't let the machine's elevator bring you down.
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Jim Dynamo. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. Fighting on the right side of things, we read from the Daily Caller, former prosecutor sues Obama, Al Sharpton, for inciting a race war. Written by Tory Richards, a former federal prosecutor has sued President Obama, the founders of Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, and former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder for inciting a race war that led to the fatal Dallas police shootings. The federal class action lawsuit filed on Saturday in Dallas accuses the defendants of aiding and abetting murder, terrorist promotion of gang activity, and civil rights violations of law enforcement officers. It seeks damages of more than $2 billion. These defendants have incited violence and in fact have a direct link to what happened in Dallas, said Larry Klayman, who worked for the Department of Justice during the Reagan administration and later founded the conservative advocacy groups Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. I hope that law enforcement in Dallas and all around the nation will join our class action. It's a peaceful, legal means to fight this. We have had it. The people are finally starting to speak out. The case has been assigned to Judge Sam A. Lindsay, a Clinton appointee who is also an African American. While none of the defendants have responded for comment except for the DOJ spokesman, Nicole Navas, who said, "The Justice Department declines to comment on the pending litigation. Thank you." Whatever, Nicole. The defendants have publicly incited people to violence with the fiction that police officers and other law enforcement are intentionally and systematically targeting and hunting blacks and other minorities to kill them for no other reason than racism or sport, the complaint says. The defendants have called for a civil war targeting police officers of all races for immediate violence and severe bodily injury or death in response to the non-existent and fictitious threat. Defendants are encouraging disaffected blacks and black Muslims to ignore, disrespect, and assault law enforcement officials and commit violence and lethal force, the complaint says. On July 7, Black Lives terrorist, Black Muslim, Micah, whatever.